Good evening, everybody. How are you all? Fine, good. It's customary that you respond. Yes, good. I'm Pam Breyer, and I am privileged to be the host of this evening, and I'm thrilled that you all are here. With us tonight from the Hunter College senior team is Lon Kaufman, who's the acting provost and vice president for academic affairs. And next to him is Andrew Polsky, who is the dean of the School of Arts and Sciences and professor of political science, I should say. And where are you, Anthony? Anthony. Oh, Anthony. Right. A very important person, is the chair of the Department of Africana and Puerto Rican Latino Studies. So thank you all for coming this evening. And I would love to introduce all of you, but you would throw eggs and tomatoes at me, I'm sure. So I want to say that I am here tonight on behalf of President Jennifer Robb, who had planned to be here this evening and is currently spending the evening and tomorrow at Cambridge, where there is a college that wanted her skills and talents for the day, and I'm very sorry about that. It's just a bad scheduling glitch. But I am really thrilled. I am most thrilled to introduce tonight, in just a few minutes, a dear friend, and a brilliant public servant, Chirlane McCray, the First Lady of New York City. And she will talk tonight about the mental health initiatives that have been so important to her and very important to our city. Chirlane's advocacy and her success in drawing attention not only to the issue of health, but to the issue of mental health, a subject that no one wanted to talk about for too many centuries, is a perfect thing to talk about tonight at Hunter College, with its 147-year history of equal opportunity for all, and particularly at Roosevelt House, which is the perfect place to hold it. It is the place where Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt lived from shortly after their marriage until they went to the White House. And then Roosevelt House became part of Hunter College 10 years later in 1943. I have many things I'd love to tell you about Eleanor Roosevelt and what she did here and what she did for our country and what she did in this very building, but I think I am going to skip that opportunity so that we can move along and get to the program, but I promise you. One thing I cannot resist telling you is it is in this very building during Roosevelt's second term that he persuaded someone very important, Frances Perkins, to become the first female cabinet member in the history of the United States. And she accepted with the proviso that he would create an old age program, a program that we know today as Social Security. So thank you, Frances, wherever you may be. We really are grateful to you. And so it is nice to be able to talk about Frances in one breath and Chirlane in another. And really, what could be more fundamentally important and a human right than healthcare? Eleanor Roosevelt herself expressed it perfectly when she said, "True patriotism springs from a belief in the dignity of the individual, freedom, and equality, not only for Americans, but for all people on earth." So, without further ado, let me say that tonight is part of a lecture series sponsored by a very important woman on the campus of Hunter College, a person who many people know, and maybe not all of you, but many people at Hunter know, and that is the indomitable Hunter's own Phyllis Kossoff. And I say Hunter's own because Phyllis is a Hunter alumna who has made our college proud. That is an understatement, Phyllis. And who proves the often heard contention it said in here my contention, but I struck that out, that once a Hunter girl gets going, there's no stopping her. And she is passing that on to new generations, and we are grateful to her. Last year, Phyllis established the Phyllis Kossoff Roosevelt Honors Scholarship Program, which each year provides one incoming freshman student chosen on the basis of merit, a $2,000 scholarship, renewed during their subsequent years at Hunter. And we are sorry it has been one of those evenings of things happening to people on their way here, but this wonderful first-year scholar is on her way to the airport to meet her parents from Kosovo, who she has not seen in 8 years. I would have liked her to bring her parents here, but I don't think it's going to happen. Phyllis has been on the go her entire life, and I heard the long story of Phyllis's life the other night from President Rob, and she has spent her life as an educator, a businesswoman, a philanthropist, and for decades she has been active in the national campaign to treat and cure cystic fibrosis, the horrible affliction that took her daughter Stephanie's life at age 19. The Cystic Fibrosis Association of Greater New York was founded more than 60 years ago, and I can bet you can't guess who founded that, by Phyllis and her late husband, Burton. Phyllis has been a wonderfully generous person to Hunter in so many ways. And we salute her this evening for her pioneering work as a distinguished early supporter of creating Roosevelt House and establishing its mission of becoming a national thought leader in public policy. Phyllis backed up that vision by endowing the lecture series that bears her name. And now, let me say just once again how grateful we are to you, Phyllis, and how proud we are of all your achievements. So would you, I hate to make you do this, but would you please stand so we can salute you? Or wave. All right. Phyllis, unfortunately hurt her ankle and is not standing up so easily this evening, so, excuse me. And now, I want to make a few comments about my good friend, Chirlane McCray. I met Chirlane, I think it was in 2002, at a reception for her husband, who had just become a member of the city council. And I was struck by her immediately. She was composed, elegant, she smiled a lot, she seemed to know so much, and she seemed so relaxed and really with it. And I thought about it afterwards. Here was a woman with 2 children, a husband in politics, a job of her own, and she was just so lovely and gracious. I was totally captivated by her, I have to say. It was that evening that I first put the notion in her head that she might come work for us at Maimonides Medical Center, because she knew so much, and I knew that she could write well. She has a really great background in writing and knows a lot about, not as much as she knows now, about current affairs. And it seemed just like a natural. And to my great delight, she did agree. And we spent 4 or 5 years together. And we didn't see too much of each other because she was always working away, and so was I. But again, I was so impressed by the way this woman took up her sort of innate natural leadership and created some programs of her own and began to understand areas that she'd never worked in before, but which came in so handy later, which is sort of presentation of material and communication, perfect for her, really. And she really became a favorite of the staff. And why did she become a favorite of the staff? I want to just close by saying this, because I could go on for a while. The thing about Chirlane is that she's a real person, and she hasn't forgotten that she's herself. And she does her job, a very high-powered, high-profile job. But not for 1 second does she think of herself as, one of my favorite expressions, a poobah. She is Chirlane McCray. And she is on a mission. She is a woman with many things to do and barely enough time to do them. She focused on exactly the right things. She is a pioneer. And since I myself spent many years lamenting the disconnection between treating the mind and treating the body, when Chirlane decided that she would set up a program and push it forward to reconnect them and to make mental health care available to all people in this city, I couldn't help but applaud, and you will applaud tonight after you hear what she has to say. And before you hear what she has to say, I want to show you just a brief video that gives you really a brief overview of the program that really is Chirlane McCray's invention, and that is Thrive New York City.
When we get hurt, no one tells us.
Lose the crutches, it's all in your head.
If someone is seriously ill, we don't say,
just feel less pneumonia-y.
So how is it that when
I'm not able to sleep at night?
I'm anxious all the time.
Drinking is the only way I can feel good these days.
Seems like I'm arguing with the people I love nonstop.
or other issues related to our mental health, too many people pretend we can just
snap out of it.
Taking care of our mental health shouldn't be any different than taking care of our physical health. But let's be honest, there's still too much secrecy and shame around seeking help. The truth is, this affects nearly all of us. 1 in 5 adult New Yorkers are dealing with a mental health disorder every year. Now imagine a city where the path to taking care of your mental health is crystal clear. We're not just going to imagine it. We created a roadmap for mental health to make our city as healthy and as strong as it can be. The roadmap has 6 guiding principles. Change the culture. Let's make it easier to talk about our mental health. Act early. Investing in prevention gives New Yorkers the tools to weather challenges. Close treatment gaps. We need proven programs in every neighborhood and every community. Partner with communities. The wisdom of local communities will help us get to the most effective solutions. Use data better. Better data means better treatment, better policies, and better prevention. Strengthen government's ability to lead, because we have a responsibility to support your access to mental health. New York City is moving closer to the day when the path to mental health is clear for every New Yorker. Get involved. Find out more about the roadmap here.
And now I would like to introduce Chirlane McCray. I think I may have been drinking your water, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Thank you. Thank you. That was a fun video, don't you think? Right? Mental health should be fun. Yeah, so good evening, everyone. And thank you, Pam. You know, I had the honor of speaking at Pam's retirement party last year. And from day one, I had my suspicions that, Pam isn't really the retiring type. And from all I've heard, from all I've seen, my suspicions have been confirmed. They were well-founded because Pam has not missed a beat. Wouldn't you say? Yes. And while I do hope that she's taking a little bit more time for herself, I'm so grateful that we get to continue working together. So thank you, Pam. I'm also grateful for that President Rob for inviting me to Roosevelt House, and of course, Mrs. Kossoff. I'm so grateful to you for hosting this amazing lecture series, and I'm in really good company here tonight. I'm truly honored to be here, and for me as a progressive, Roosevelt House is truly hallowed ground. The place where Francis Perkins first proposed Social Security, where Harold M. Ickes accepted his post as Secretary of the Interior, where FDR himself recorded his first radio address as president-elect. But it probably won't surprise you to learn that for me, the most inspiring Roosevelt is Eleanor Roosevelt. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, becoming First Lady was never really part of my long-term plan. And Pam, you can back me up on that, right? When I was at Maimonides, she never caught me doodling First Lady Chirlane McCray anywhere in my notebook during a meeting. Isn't that right? Right. Now, I really am a writer by trade, someone who's more happy being behind the scenes. And like most writers, I'd often rather be buried in a book than standing behind a podium. But I'm also a lifelong activist and a warrior for social justice, and you gotta, something needs doing, you just have to get up there and do it. So when Bill became mayor and I became First Lady, I knew I had to make the most of this opportunity. It's a once-in-a-life chance to really make big change. And of course, when it comes to being a groundbreaking First Lady, there is no better role model than Mrs. Roosevelt. Eleanor's example has helped me in ways big and small. Her unflappable dignity in the face of those who doubted and demeaned her is a reminder that, as she put it, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So there. I modeled my Tumblr page after My Day, the newspaper column that Eleanor wrote for more than 25 years. And most importantly, Eleanor is one of those who inspired me to identify causes that speak to my personal experience and do something about them, something big. Eleanor spent her early years as First Lady helping Americans recover from the Great Depression. Much of my work is also focused on helping New Yorkers recover from depression of the mind, along with other mental health disorders like addiction, anxiety, and bipolar disease. I know that comparison might sound facile. What does the Great Depression have to do with mental depression? Well, I would argue that they do have one very important thing in common, something not enough people appreciate. At the height of the Great Depression, the unemployment rate was 25%, which means 1 in 4 workers could not find a job. Right now, at this very moment, 1 in 5 New Yorkers, and that number may be higher, suffers from a diagnosable mental health condition. 1 in 4, 1 in 5, those are crisis numbers. Those are numbers that require a comprehensive and coordinated response. That, of course, is exactly what the Roosevelt administration created for America with the New Deal. It was big, it was ambitious, it required everyone to do their part, and it worked. Here in New York City, we are taking a similar approach to the mental health crisis. But before I get into the details, I want to make one thing clear. My passion for this issue goes way beyond statistics. Over the course of my life, I've watched people who are very close to me, people I've loved and cared about, struggle with alcoholism, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and other conditions. And I'm guessing that you have too. Thrive NYC is our effort to shatter the stigma of mental illness and change the way city government and its partners deliver services. We announced Thrive NYC back in November of 2015. And does anyone besides Pam remember where we announced it? That's right, the Silberman School of Social Work. How appropriate. And yeah, you can pause for that. Because we wanted to let everyone know that Thrive NYC is not just a government initiative. We are committed to partnering with the best and the brightest at every stage of their careers. Now, there are 54 different programs in Thrive backed up by nearly $1 billion over the next 4 years. That makes Thrive the most comprehensive mental health plan in any city or state in the nation. And our efforts are already beginning to make a difference in the lives of New Yorkers. And here's a sampling of what we've achieved so far. Since the launch of Thrive, we've set up a system to screen 80% of new mothers and pregnant women for maternal depression. You want to clap? Every single one of our schools has some form of mental health support. We are well on our way to training 250,000 New Yorkers in mental health first aid, which is like CPR, but it's focused on emotional behavior. And my fourth example is that we've created NYC Well, which is a revolutionary crisis line and a central access point where any New Yorker, no matter where you live, no matter how much money you make, no matter what the problem is, you can connect to this access point and connect to a mental health provider or a counselor. And that number is 1-888-NYC-WELL. Please repeat it. 1-888-NYC-WELL. And now you can clap. I want you to share that number with everyone you know, because the most powerful form of advertising is word of mouth, and we need every New Yorker to know that there is always some place to call. There's always someone to talk to when you're in need. Again, this is free, it's confidential, and it is open 365 days of the year, 24/7, and available to people in more than 200 languages. So, the initiative I am most excited to tell you about this evening is one that would not be possible without our friends at Hunter, and that's the Mental Health Service Corps. As you saw in the video we just saw, one of Thrive's 6 guiding principles is partner with communities. And here's what that means in plain language. It means we're developing close working relationships with trusted neighborhood organizations. And it means that we're making cultural competence a top priority. And it means we are embracing bold new ideas, because that's what it will take to make a real difference in neighborhoods that are effectively mental health deserts. The Mental Health Service Corps incorporates all 3 of these principles, and it's being run by Hunter College in partnership with our outstanding Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Now, here's the basic idea behind the Corps. First, we recruit physicians and recently graduated doctoral and master's level clinicians to serve as members. Then, we send these folks out into the neighborhoods where they're most needed and embed them in primary care practices, substance use programs, and mental health clinics. Now, here's a hypothetical situation just to give you a better sense of how it works on the ground. Let's say you're a single mother in Washington Heights, and you go to a local primary care provider because you're battling a bad case of the flu. During the course of your conversation with the doctor begins to think that you also may be dealing with a mental health challenge and could benefit from talking to someone who understands better what you're going through. Fortunately, this doctor's office is a Service Corps partner, which means a Service Corps member is right there in the building. So instead of keeping her theory to herself or referring you to a therapist who may be a subway ride away, the doctor can call in the Service Corps member who can provide you with expert help right then and there in that office. That's pretty cool, right? For too long, we've kept physical health and mental health separate. And that just doesn't make any sense, because there is no health without mental health, right? The course currently includes more than 100 mental health providers, mental health pioneers, I want to say, and that number will eventually grow to 400 members who will provide approximately 400,000 additional hours of service. But numbers alone don't really capture what makes the course special, which brings me back to cultural competence. Mental health is a sensitive issue. People are much more likely to ask for help if they are in a place they feel comfortable and talking to people that they trust. And that's why we're deploying core members to places that New Yorkers already go. That is why we are partnering them with organizations they already trust. And that is why we are working hard to recruit candidates who come from the same communities that they serve. Now, as you might imagine, putting together such a big and unprecedented initiative requires a massive amount of coordination, improvisation, and determination. Well, if you thought that, you're right. And we chose a great partner in Hunter. And Hunter chose a great leader to oversee the program in Pam, who is sometimes referred to as the mom-in-chief by her colleagues. Did you know that? And by the way, management expertise is not the only thing Hunter is providing to the Corps. A significant number of Service Corps members are Silberman graduates, and I am grateful to each and every one of them. So clearly, Hunter College has done more than their fair share to help us get Thrive NYC off the ground, but I am reminded of a quote by a CUNY grad who knew a thing or two about public health, and that is Dr. Jonas Salk. He once said, "The reward for work well done is the opportunity to do more." Something I learn every day. With that in mind, I'm going to close my remarks with 2 ways every single one of you, every single person in this room, can help us change New York's mindset around the mind. Number 1, please sign up to host a mental health first aid class, which is, again, like CPR, but focused on emotional behavior. We all know what to do when someone cuts themselves, right? You apply pressure, you raise the body part above the heart, and you apply a Band-Aid or a bandage. Well, everyone should also know what to do if a friend or family member exhibits signs of mental distress, which is why we made mental health first aid a priority, an essential part of Thrive NYC. It's free, signing up is easy, and for more information, all you need to do is visit our website. The address is nyc.gov/ThriveNYC, and you click on MHFA for Mental Health First Aid. So that's what I ask of all of you. 2, please help us spread the word about NYC Well. It's our crisis hotline, it's our access point to care, get connected with a provider. What's that number again? 1-888-NYC Well. Good, good. Remember, with NYC Well, free, confidential, and high-quality mental health support is just 1 click or call away, because you can also access it online or by texting. And it's accessible from any device in more than 200 languages. Again, 365 days of the year, 24/7. And please let everyone know if they want to talk to a trained mental health counselor on the phone or a peer counselor, they can get one at 1-888-NYC Well. So I don't make these asks lightly. I really don't. I know that all of you are very busy people and have a full plate. But when it comes to mental health, the stakes could not be higher. And in order to overcome the crisis, we need each and every one of you to become an active member in what has become a real movement. And naturally, there's a beautiful Eleanor Roosevelt quote to illustrate this point. Here's what she said. "One thing I believe profoundly, we make our own history. The course of history is directed by the choices we make, and our choices grow out of the ideas, the beliefs, the values, the dreams of the people. It is not so much the powerful leaders that determine our destiny, as much the more powerful influence of the combined voices of the people themselves. So please add your voice to the chorus of activists calling for and working toward a mental health system for all New Yorkers. I am so grateful to count you as allies, and I'm so excited to strengthen our partnership and create the future that we deserve. So thank you all. And I guess now we get to do some questions.
So we are going to take questions, and Bill Goldstein is going to call on you, and I think there's a microphone that will be wandering around. And I just have to say, I did cut one thing out of my speech, which is that what happens in New York often shows up in the other parts of the country. And it will not surprise me to see that other cities take a page out of this book. And the thought about that is really just thrilling. So thanks to you.
So I just want to say we have time for 2 questions, unfortunately. Yes?
Hello. Got a mic there.
Sorry. If you had a dear friend or someone that you related it to and they were going through a mental crisis, what would you recommend that they do?
Oh, I'm so happy you all know. The first thing I would do.
Another question?
Yes, it does.
The audience answered it.
Well, the first thing I would do is listen. And I think that's the most important thing to remember, that all of us can be healers. And one of the ways that we can be healers is by listening when people are going through something and need someone to talk to. And then, of course, if it is not something that you feel qualified to address because you're not a clinician or a social worker, then you can say, call 1-888-NYC-WELL. But remember, your role as a listener is a very powerful one.
Thank you, Shirley and Trey, for all of the wonderful things you have done for mental health in New York City. I'm a former psych nurse practitioner. Oh, I'm sorry. Should I repeat it again? Okay. I'm a former psych nurse practitioner, and I wanted to ask you if you ever envision a mental health walk in New York City, such as we have had for breast cancer, arthritis, etc.
I think it's a great idea, and we do have NAMI walks. We have advocacy organizations who do them, advocacy organizations for mental health, but perhaps we will do a Thrive NYC walk one day. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Time for 2 more questions.
Do you have any coordination with NAMI that you just mentioned?
Yes, NAMI is a very important partner with us and also with Cities Thrive, National Association for Mental Illness. There's so many acronyms. I fear getting them wrong. But I want to let you know that we do have a Cities Thrive coalition. As of yesterday, we have 151 cities working with us, and they span 50 states across our country. We are all working for mental health reform, lobbying or I guess I can't say that word, was advocating with for mental health reform with our federal government, sharing best practices, because there are good things happening in the area of mental health all over the country, but we have no way of communicating with each other. So that's why we started Cities Thrive, and we have monthly conference calls, and we have advocacy organizations like NAMI that are important partners to us.
So there was a time when people who were mentally ill could be incarcerated, put into a hospital against their will, but to save their lives. When that law changed, as one famous psychiatrist of the period said, they're dying with their civil rights on, because you couldn't, against their will, put them in, even if they needed it. How does mental health programs like this in New York now address the fact that we cannot put people in even if they are suicidal or terribly ill?
Well, that's not exactly how I understand it. If someone is in danger of harming him or herself or hurting someone else, we can make sure that person gets care. That's there's no doubt about that. That's the law. We don't want people to hurt other people, and we don't want people to hurt themselves. But our goal with Thrive NYC is to prevent people from even getting to that point. Of course, we have to treat people at all stages of life, people with all kinds of risks, but our goal is to get people to care before they spiral down into depression or addiction, and get to that point where they do want to harm themselves directly or inadvertently. One more? One more? One more, one more.
Hi. Given the criminalization of mental illness, I'm curious if Thrive is planning to go behind bars into criminal justice reform efforts and the closed Rikers planning.
You'll be happy to know that we're working very closely with the NYPD through Thrive. In fact, we have 20 agencies with our mental health council sitting around the table, that includes fire and NYPD, talking about how to change policies that affect this population negatively. And we couldn't make big change like this if we didn't get everybody sitting at the table thinking about how to do it differently. And so we are training all of our police officers in crisis intervention training, and talking with them about all the things that come up in terms of handling people who have who are in emotional distress. And we've made great progress.
I have to add here, because I'm very passionate about prison health. And I do want to say that the de Blasio administration has really taken more than an interest. They have galvanized people to start working together. There are maybe 100 flowers blooming around New York, and the trick is to put them together so that people leaving prison get what they want, and we can reduce recidivism.
That's right.
I will say, with due respect to our previous mayors, including one who I would say deserves the title of public health mayor, we would have to leave prisoners out of that. And I think it really is this administration that has decided to take on the terrible problems that happen to people. And the fact that so many people behind bars are mentally ill means that we absolutely must find a way to treat them. So the credit goes to this couple here for working on that, and the deputy mayor.
Yeah, and I will add to that, just 40% of our population behind bars is estimated to have some kind of mental illness, which is just not acceptable. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that those who are in emotional distress or have a substance use disorder don't end up in jail, that they are diverted to other services so they can get well and become productive citizens. And that being said, once people get in jail, it's like they're traumatized all over again, right? And so they have an illness, and they're re-traumatized, they're traumatized again, and then it takes a lot to get them well. What we really need is more supportive housing for folks who cannot live on their own, supportive housing with wraparound services so that people can live. You can't live in a hospital bed, you can't live in a shelter bed. But we need those services. We don't have the kind of services or supportive housing that we need yet, but that's what we're fighting for. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to Shirlane McCray, and I invite you to join us upstairs in the Four Freedoms room for a reception, and thank you, Mrs. Kossoff.